This is a series of fights between xSky and myself, Kane. Uh, we didn't have a lot of time to do a number of fights. This is at the end of practice, and so we just did some rapid fire, some duels for that quick analysis. And so I'm going to be discussing the fight as we go, but I will include the full kind of unedited fighting at the end of this video, so you can jump ahead and do some analysis yourself if you'd like. Um, but I wanted to focus on a few things, specifically when doing some kind of like quick analysis. This happens in the fight as well. Whenever you don't have a ton of time to kind of like really assess your opponent, you can do some quick analysis, which I find to follow kind of a three-step pattern, which is the big data points you want to figure out and assess are their stance, how are they standing, what does that tell you? Where is their sword? Like, look at their sword and try to figure out what is their sword positioning telling you, as well as what their target is. Like, where are they aiming? Some bonus things you can look for that I won't get into here is like who's in control of the fight, what's the tempo, what's the pacing, what how are they reacting? Those are kind of secondary things, but really, stance, sword, target are kind of what was going through my head as I was working with xSky at this moment. So let's kind of break it down a little bit and focus in on those things and highlight those as well as some other things that may come up. So let's press play for a second. Okay, so we're going to be coming in, and we'll backtrack just a second because we want to really just start things off nice and tidy. Okay, so we get into a bit of a conversation, which is anytime the swords are kind of jockeying for position, that is termed as a conversation. And really, we're just positioning ourselves and moving things around, trying to get things settled. So if we look at quickly the stance, you can see that xSky is slightly forward in their stance, which means they're kind of aggressive on the the more aggressive side. They're leading into it. I have more a straight up stance, which means I'm kind of less in between defensive and offensive, versus something that's like leaning back. That's a more of a defensive stance. Footwork wise, I have a more basic kind of balanced stance, whereas xSky is leaning forward, which means a lot more pressure is on this leg, um, meaning it lends itself to moving forward very quickly, but moving backwards makes it harder. So that's kind of stuff you're looking for is okay, what's their ability to retreat? What's their that's there. They may take a second, and if they do retreat, it's kind of a very, very deep commitment there. Sword positioning wise, you see xSky's sword is out here, jockeying for the position. My sword is also out here. So both of us have kind of placed our sword in a position where we want to talk, we want to converse, but no one is really committing one way or the other than maybe xSky is a little bit more forward. Death stick is way back here. Recognizing that they do have a death stick means that, okay, versus I just have my offhand, both of us are protecting our torsos with our offhand. Um, and then finally, where's their target? I'm thinking to myself, okay, chest area is probably a good target. xSky is probably thinking the same thing. Okay, so that's the spaces that we need to defend pretty clearly. Okay. Oh, sword positions changed, and now we can go through again. There, and in that quick little exchange, let me back it up a little bit. Okay, the stance has changed. Mine is a little bit more wider. xSky has moved the death stick forward. The sword is way back here, right? But they're not in a full refuse stance. This is still the lead foot, which matches the sword. So they're just slightly twisted, but the range is there. Okay, so if we fast forward through this, death stick is more active, right? Quick. You see how that stance, how this stance itself, that forward foot, this is back foot, lends itself to an explosive press or movement forward. Right, out it comes. Really good reach from xSky. I really liked that angle from that foot to the strike here. Like that's really going good one. I appreciate the break in the arm, which is great. At the time, I didn't quite recognize it. It was a really light positive pressure touch, so I reacted before recognizing the kill, which is fine. But then stepping back and assessing, oh yeah, I actually did. You did actually get me there, which is totally fine. That's something that everybody can recognize. That hey, I did get, you did actually get me. I'm sorry, I did react. My brain was in a different place, so I was prepared. That's okay. Okay. Moving on here. Okay, we're doing some more jockeying. All right, if we're doing some assessment again, what's the stance? Well, again, I'm back to my balanced stance, which is primarily kind of in between. We now see that xSky has fallen into a similar pattern with the more balanced stance. More pressure is on that back foot versus the front foot. Okay, the sword is back versus mine is a little bit more forward. To me, this is saying that um, I am now on the offense and xSky is on the defense. By leaning back slightly and my sword being more forward, right, it puts me in a position of offensive, um, right, which is great. But overall, xSky's stance is really good. The sword is nice and at 45. The death stick is engaged, defending the torso. The sword is there. Like overall, the defensive potential for all of this is very high. There's not much to worry about the legs because the sword is way up here, and the sword would have to drop much further. That's a lot of drawing, but whatever. So xSky's stance is really good. I would want to see this from a lot of fencers as a really classic, solid stance. I think this is great. Okay, we're moving in. Okay, so this is where I think some conversation we had. We have this nice, pretty stance, and we can see the death stick is a little bit smaller than normal, almost like a dagger death stick, which is fine. But remember, this death stick is not the primary weapon. This thing has no tip on it. There's nothing that could kill me. This sword is the primary weapon, right? And my sword is out here kind of inviting and out for grabs, okay? But as it's moving in, I try to take xSky's sword away, right? And then xSky's dagger comes in to claim my extended sword, right? But little smaller reach with the dagger, okay? I mean with the dagger death stick. And now we're looking at it going, okay, you had that nice solid stance. The death stick, this is way out here. The sword is way out here. We've lost a lot of our defensive potential, and we're now leaning forward on that front foot a ton. And they just let's go back again. Okay. You're gonna watch my sword for a quick disengage. This is where I think we forget a lot of times how powerful it is. So right now my sword is on the outside of that death stick. The sword is coming in. You can see it is now just a quick drop and a move to the side, and now the tip of my sword is right here. Remember the defensive potential that has now disappeared because the sword is way over here. But we see, okay, I could have gone for it, but nope, I didn't. Kept it free though, and now come back and strike. Again, same thing. A quick disengage. I learned my lesson. I missed an opportunity earlier, so now I've disengaged, and just like Captain Edward was teaching, that disengage and that footwork are happening at the same time. Out it comes right in my target area, which is the torso and the head, okay, before the sword ever comes like back into play, really, and we land the shot. Okay. We went from a really solid stance of position here, reaching out and extending with the desk stick, opened things up, a quick disengage underneath the blade, and synchronized footwork led to an opportunity straight in pretty much safety, right? And there we go. Okay, now we're going to reset again. Let's. All right, there's that first fight. Sorry about that. Okay, there's that again. A disengage. Learn the lesson. Try it again. Bam, done. Okay, so now this next fight, we're probing again. We're looking at stance, a much wider stance, which is fine. The lean is forward, pressure on the front foot, sword is engaged, desk stick is engaged. This I really like. This tells me that xSky is thinking more offensively. They're thinking to themselves, okay, target is still probably here, so I want to make sure to be leaning into that, versus mine, which again, very forward stance, pressure on the front foot, sword extended. I'm probing right now to try to see what is xSky going to do. Okay, back up, doesn't like the range here. I step in a little closer, probe again. Still, the lack of a reaction, solid stance, really good defensive stance from xSky, but no reaction means, okay, the warning signal that I'm close enough to kill is not there. And you can see that's true. I'm like fully extended here, and I still got plenty of space between there. So not a lot, but I'm slowly inching forward. Okay. Inch again. Okay. See how now this time I inched a little closer and we got a reaction from xSky, which is great. That's fine. You can react. Now I know we're relatively in that range game space. Okay, so we're going to settle back in. Okay, and I've set up a pattern by striking multiple times at this space. So the second I start to move again, you can see that I've stepped in. I'm starting to get a reaction from xSky, but already my sword has come in and it's on the move. It's changed the pattern. So the sword is moving this direction, and my sword is already coming down and around for a disengage as I step in with that stance. And because xSky's stance is now much more back, they're leaning back here, and a lot of the pressure is on that back leg. Movement is much harder. They're not going to be able to retreat as well. So we disengage from one side completely to the other side and up and in around their sword. Okay. May not have landed a full shot. We're going to go again because now an overcorrection has happened. So we went from one side on around, and then we're going back in, but xSky's sword has come across to block. It's disengaged, so now it's going to go back again. And you're going to see, okay, back around, quick dip back under, and a strike, and a strike again. That wasn't a full strike. It was, you saw that, okay, on this one they're extending, but because they're leaning back, they don't have the range to get me here. So I press in and I get a little bit of a strike here, but then they retreat again. I keep my sword in play and press in here again with my feet. Right? You see that I'm leaning in even further. That's committing to that strike. That's committing to that opportunity and pressing in. And all the while, xSky's sword is dancing around in front of me, but because of their stance, couldn't quite get in. So that led to a kill on my for me. But I think it's something to be aware of, that when you're doing these disengages, you don't want to follow your opponent's blade necessarily, because if they stay in front of you, you may be following to where they used to be versus where they're going. So tracking your opponent's blade is kind of critical. Where's their blade? Where's their blade? Where's their blade? Asking that. What's their stance? What's their blade? What's their target? Okay. So we're going to come back in here. Let's just go slowly through this. xSky's doing the same thing. We're looking at stance. We have a more forward stance. Pressure on the front foot. More straight balanced stance here. xSky's sword is forward. On the aggressive, my sword is up here because it's more defensive. Okay. So now xSky is kind of doing what I just did, which is strike one side, disengage, and go under. Okay. So I'm back. See that coming in? It's a quick block. They do get my hand, right? They do land the shot. I block them into my hand, which is okay, right? But we've been able to block and push it away. And now this, by the way, is a very pretty lunge from xSky. Very nice. I wish the death stick had remained higher up here, because this block attack combo that's happening right now, right? We block with a 3 and we strike back in right on that same line that xSky had just committed to, right? Lends itself to a quick 3 block and a strike in on the chest. Whereas I wish that death stick was up here to kind of push that there. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So the biggest things to pay attention to: quick analysis. I find that if you can learn what their stance tells you, where their sword is, and what they might be aiming for, the stance gives you an idea of what their intentions are going to be. Are they offensive? Are they defensive? What possibilities are going to happen? Their sword tells you, okay, what is possible. If their sword is further back, then you have more time. If their sword is really a forward, that tells you that they're trying to be more aggressive and they have less. You have less time to deal with it, and you have to address it more diligently. And then you have to figure out where their target, where they're aiming. Because like we saw with xSky, a lot of the time their shots were focused in on the head and the chest, which means I can defend those and not worry about, say, my arms or my legs or my pelvis. Like, it can eliminate some areas to focus in on, knowing where exactly they might be targeting. We also saw in the video that disengages and combos are great tools. We have to track them and polish up where we're going. We also saw what really good stance could do. We also saw that in general, the death stick is not a killing weapon. Therefore, you can try to ignore it as much as possible rather than getting caught up into it. So, well done. Good set of fights. I'll take that.
What? Yeah. That's a very fortunate time. Cool, I don't remember this.
You got one more.